Hiring for Sales Professionals, presented by Heffernan Consulting. We're so happy you could join us today. I'm Diane Probert, and I'll be your moderator today, and we'll be monitoring questions you may have during the session. Before we open up the session today, let's just review a couple of key items. All of the webinar materials we discuss can be found on this website on your screen here at aspenrmg.com/HeffernanWebinars, HTM. If you have trouble with your internet connection during the webinar, we recommend leaving the presentation and then logging back in. And if you have any audio difficulties or a telephone line goes dead during the call, just hang up and call back again to the same number. If all lines go dead, watch the on-screen chat box for an alternative call-in number. Please feel free to ask any questions or provide feedback via the chat box during the webinar. If you are using a tablet, you may need to tap on the screen for the options bar to appear. Then you can select the appropriate option. We may not be able to respond immediately, but we'll work your questions or feedback into the presentation. If we can't get to your comment or question during the session, we'll be online afterwards to respond. You may also email us at moderator@aspenrmg.com for up to 24 hours after the webinar. This will be a 1-hour presentation. Questions and comments, again, are very much encouraged throughout. And lastly, we have a number of webinars coming up, including these listed here on the Heffernan website. And as you can see, if you just scroll down the page, you can see all of the webinars right here. And then also, if you keep scrolling all the way down to the page, you can see here where we have all of the past webinars and the information and the presentations from them. Today's webinar will be loaded up after the presentation, so if you wanted to check back, this is where you'll be able to find it. Today's interactive session will be facilitated by Julie Brown, President of SDI Staffing. Julie started SDIS in 1995, and she specializes in placing temporary and direct hire employees throughout Southern California for the insurance and financial services industries. She is a member of the American Staffing Association and California Staffing Professionals. She has been recognized with numerous awards, far too many to list today, but one of them is including the SBA's Women-Owned Business of the Year for San Diego and Imperial Counties. She is a native San Diegan, married with 2 children, and during the race season, she can be found every other weekend at the Verona Speedway watching her son and husband racing dwarf cars. With that, I'm going to turn over the screen to Julie. Thank you so much for being with us today.
Thank you, Diana. I really appreciate it. Good morning, everyone. I look forward to a great morning. Feel free to ask any questions, as Diana said. Today we're going to focus on, my specialty is finding people in the insurance, banking, and financial services industries. But in finding those kind of salespeople, I know that other industries as well could benefit from the techniques that I use in sourcing people and finding people. And first of all, I want to thank you for joining us. And then this presentation today is informational purposes and is not legal advice. And so let's get started. Let's start with a polling question. Diana, so what is your job responsibility in this recruiting and hiring process for your company?
Everyone could see if you're a hiring manager or a sales manager, click that. If you're a recruiter, human resources, not a recruiter, executive level or owner, or other. If everyone could just please click what best represents you. And I'm going to give everyone just a few more seconds to vote. It looks like we're having a fantastic response. I really appreciate that. And I'm just going to give you a couple more seconds to vote. And I'm going to go ahead and close the poll. And Julie, it looks like we have 25% are hiring managers or sales managers, 31% are human resources, not recruiter, and also 31% are executive level or owner, and 6% are recruiters or other.
Awesome. So that's a good mix. We have a good mix of people here. So hopefully I'll be able to address some things that all of you can take away from this and give you some great ideas on hiring your next salespeople. All right, so let's get started. First of all, I always tell people step 1 is to determine if you need a salesperson and what the role is going to be. If you don't have a job description, if you don't have decided, what they're going to be, what territory they're going to work, whether we're looking at someone with or without experience. So if they're a trainee, they're going to be inside or outside sales, and then what do we want them to accomplish? Do we have some set goals for them that we know they want to accomplish in the 30, 90 days, 1 year, 3 year? So identify all those duties, responsibilities, and skills that you want and experience wanted. I know sometimes I find in the insurance industry that my clients will, they'll either hire a salesperson or maybe they want an account exec, as we call them in the industry, where they're kind of more of an inside salesperson, not an outside salesperson, because we have a couple really great hunters in the agency. And so if your company has some really great hunters, you know, maybe you don't need another hunter. You need kind of a farmer, someone to take those orders, someone to do some warm leads and warm calls and just focus on some inside sales or things coming in the door. So you need to determine what you're going to need in a salesperson to do. The next step is to look at the characteristics and personality traits that you want for someone. If you don't need them to be a hunter, there may be different qualifications and characteristics that you want to look for. If you do want a hunter type salesperson, they're going to have different traits. So these are the traits, you know, high ego, desire to be financially successful, high empathy, and energy and urgency. We're going to probably look, these are the top 4 things that you want in a hunter kind of person. But you may need other things like consultative selling, or an account exec maybe requires more analysis ability and problem solving. They also require good listening skills and relationship building skills. So you might want to think about really what you want this role to be and pick out some of these personality traits that you want in your next candidate. Some of these, some things can be taught, like, you know, your product knowledge, your knowledge of your competition and their customer base, and your policies and procedures and workflow. Those things can be taught. Those are not skills you need to find necessarily, but then there are things that, some things can be trained, but they still need to have some of it in their personality, things like persuasiveness and interpersonal skills, organization and problem solving and decision making skills, listening skills. Some of those can be taught, but they do have to have, but they're not as easily taught as the competencies. So, sorry, I was on the wrong slide. So again, there are competencies that can be taught. There are core skills that can be trained, but closely related to personality traits that you want to see in people. Okay, so issues to consider is how much technical and administrative support will they have? You know, who's going to help this salesperson on the team? Will they get any support for prospecting and developing leads, or are they required to do that on their own? If they're required to develop their own leads, then you really do need a hunter-gatherer person. If you're trying to address perpetuation with this hire, so if you have a company and you're looking for long-term, you know, what do we do next? We have some aging salespeople and we need to bring in young blood, or we need to bring someone in who maybe could down the road be a sales manager to take my place or the owner's place in some capacity. Then you need to look for someone with some management or leadership skills as well and add those to your list of the desired characteristics and personality traits. You need to figure out, are there going to be any training or education programs available to help you with these new hires? And if so, what are those training and education? Because again, can you train, you know, are you just going to be training on the competencies about your product knowledge and your customer base? Or could you also train them on how to be a hunter-gatherer if they don't have a lot of experience in that area? And then what kind of formal training or experience would match up with your customer base or your prospects? You know, what kind of training or background could this person have that would be really great with our customer base? So those are the things that I'm going to write down and make a determination of what I'm looking for in this next person. And then this is probably the most important piece of this, is how much can you afford to pay a person? I get this a lot with clients, and I'll ask this question, okay, well, what are you going to pay on this salesperson? And they'll go, well, you know, I'm open. No, you're not open, because I don't want to find someone, and your HR person, if you have a recruiter or you are a recruiter, as you know, you don't want to go in, start searching, and then go through this whole process and figure out that the company really can't pay the person's base or salary requirements or compensation package that this person is looking for. So let's just make sure that you know what you want to pay. Calculate your income, target profit, and expenses to determine how much you can pay. And if there isn't enough reserves, there may not be enough compensation for a new salesperson. So address and correct your income and expense and profitability issues before you decide to hire a new salesperson. Okay, so a little bit of a worksheet of, how much can I afford to pay? You look at your monthly profit, your estimated increase in the income that this person could provide. You get a subtotal. You take out the expected salary, wages, benefits, taxes, other costs, rent, travel, additional rent, additional phones, additional travel costs or auto costs. And then you total them up, you subtract it from line C, and you determine what you can afford to pay this person. And that gives you a better idea of what to look for and what kind of person. That's also going to determine what level of person. If you're looking to, take someone from the industry, from a competitor, you better be able to pay what the competitive wages are. Sounds like we have a little phone in the background. So if someone's not on mute, maybe you can hit your mute button. Okay, so considerations. Don't make the mistake of investing countless hours in this recruiting and screening candidates to find the process flounder when you're negotiating comp terms. So that's why you need to know up front, how much can you afford to pay? Decide in advance what you can afford or willing to offer. And this really gives the ability to screen out candidates who are unwilling or unable to work under your conditions. I have one client that's like, my base is $40,000. So, that's all I'm going to pay. And so we have to focus on candidates who are willing to accept that base with the other, additional compensation down the road. So be very, focused on the candidates that are going to fit your payment scale. And then don't expect immediate profitability. I don't know many businesses, maybe there are some, but when you have a new salesperson, it does take some time, to generate the business. So also you want to work on, what does that time look like and how long can I afford this person at this base pay or whatever you're doing? Because what you don't want is unrealistic expectations for your candidates and for your producers and salespeople, because that's going to lead to frustration, fiscal pain, and failure on the salesperson. And then you have to really look at your costs that goes beyond the salary, commission, and benefits. Make sure you are including all those costs. So if you say, hey, I think I could pay this, $40,000 base, and I could do it for 2 years, and then they need to be on their own after that. Okay, so that $40,000 base is also, the benefits, the selling expenses, the auto, the training, you need to add everything up, not just what they're getting in pay. Because the cost to hire is expensive. There's your time, and if you're a salesperson or a sales manager, it could be loss of your selling time. There's recruiting costs, including advertising and testing, if you do any of that. Also the cost of your having a recruiter. So if you're an owner and you have a full-time recruiter, in-house or external that's doing this for you, there's those kind of costs. There's interviewing candidates. That's travel, time, phone, in-person. That's all time intensive. Also screening candidates, checking on references, getting the tests, reviewing the test results. Those are all costs that it's going to cost you up front before you even hire someone. And then once they're hired, there's additional costs, like mentoring, which could be your time, or your sales manager time, or if you are the sales manager, it's your time, the orientation to your industry, the training costs, and then benefits, incentives, and other expenses. So realize it's very expensive to hire someone, and so you need to be able to understand exactly how much you can afford to pay and how much you're willing to spend to get this person. Okay, so here's an example of, I kind of use this example in the insurance industry is, the $40,000 base plus benefits plus one-time costs. It could cost $54,000 for the first year for this person. And so if that's what you're going to pay, you need to be able to, how much sales do we need to, obtain to do that. And then in the second half of the screen down below, I kind of gave you a, predicted annual gross sales of the new salesperson, and then different options with different rates of commission, and what does this compensation look like? So in column E, you're looking at $56,000, $65,000, $84,000 of compensation on a base salary of $54,000, because that's what we determined up top. And then you need to have so many increased sales to do that. This is a very generic, it may not apply to your industry, but it's just a tool to use to really think about what's this going to cost me and how am I going to do this. So this is an important step, and the team that's working on this project and hiring someone needs to have this up front and ready to go, and understanding how much we're going to actually spend and what that's going to take for this person to to meet the goals and to increase sales enough to pay for them. Okay, so step 4 is creating your forms. Another really important piece of the process. If you've never hired a salesperson before, this is where you really need to spend some time. If you have, that's great. You probably already have the majority of this, but I would like you to think about making sure you have all these pieces of the puzzle before you start the recruiting process. And one of the things is like a job description. Then you have to come up with some kind of ads. How are you going to, where are you going to place an ad, and what are you going to say about it, and how are you going to look differently than everybody else's ads out there for salespeople? And I tell people to go, this is what I do, is I go start doing some research on, ads that people have out there for insurance agents. And I'm like, okay, if I'm recruiting an insurance agent or a salesperson, what are my competition doing? What do their ads look like, and how can I be different? Because you do want to stand out. You need to have a predetermined set of interview questions. So if you are an HR person and the interviews are going to be done with the sales manager and the owner, or vice versa, you need to have them already have a set questions. If they don't let them make them up on their own. You need to have a set of questions that you can use so that you ask the same questions to everybody and really be able to tell if they're the right person for the position. You also have to have some kind of evaluation forms. So you meet with 5 or 6 candidates. How are you going to evaluate them to determine which one is the better candidate for you? So come up with some evaluation forms as well. And probably more importantly is marketing materials. If I'm talking to salespeople and they're looking to make a career change or to start something new, and even if they're in the industry you're already in and you're trying to woo them away from your competitors, what makes you different? And so what is it about you? I ask the client all the time when they're like, okay, Julie, I want to hire a new salesperson. Okay, what makes you different, and why should I come work for you? It's one of the most important things that you need to have ready to go. Not only a 30-second elevator speech in a sense about your company, but also something that can be given to candidates, something that you could give a takeaway, something you can email to them, something about your company that makes you different in what you do and why they should work for you and what's in it for me. So, use some of those sales techniques of like what's in it for this candidate. You need to really come up with a good value proposition for them. You need to set up a profile. You need to set up any testing that you're going to be using. You need to have a job offer letter ready to go, a rejection letter ready to go so you can keep in touch with people. And then you need to have a contract or commission agreement. If this is a sales position where there is commissions involved, the state of California requires that you have a written contract. A couple years ago there was a new law, and it's called AB 1396, that effective January 2013, you're required to have an agreement that identifies the following. And if you don't have this, you need to put this in place before you start recruiting. What the commission is, how the employee can earn the commission, how the employer will compute the commission, how the commission will be paid, when the commission will be earned, and all agreements must be in writing. You must give the employee a copy and obtain a signed acknowledgement that they received a copy. And if the contract expires but is not replaced, it is presumed to remain in effect until it's replaced or employment ends. So you don't have to put an expiration date on the contract, but just realize that the contract is in force until it's either replaced or the employment ends. So this is something new. I have a lot of clients that are small insurance agencies, small companies, they didn't even realize this existed and that they have to put this in writing. So I wanted to give you this additional information. So some best practices on this commission agreements: it must be in writing, signed, include acknowledgement of receipt for employee to sign. It needs to set forth the eligibility criteria, such as when employees are covered, length of service, define when a commission is earned, explain that advances of unearned commissions are loans that must be reconciled against later earned commissions, if that's how you're doing it, and explain the formula for computing commissions, including commission rates, whether the rates apply to gross sales, net sales, gross margin, etc. So really explain the formula. I know there's a lot of companies out there. I talk to salespeople and they'll tell me, I don't really understand how my commission is done, but they just figured out and then, you know, I just get a check. And it's like, that's really not the way you should work. You should make your commission structure very straightforward, easy, and that your employee should understand it at any given time. And now that it has to be in writing, you should be able to explain it in writing. And then you can't change it arbitrarily. And that's the reason why the state came up with this agreement. Okay, you need to explain how splits are taken, handled, changes in territory, how that's treated, how returns and refunds affect commissions. You need to address termination of employment and if it's effect on unearned or unpaid commissions. I mean, how does that work? Avoid languages that sound like forfeiture of an otherwise earned commission. Include the term of agreement, how commissions will be paid, when they will be paid, and explain the employer's discretion to interpret, modify, or discontinue the terms of the plan. So you need to put that also in your commission agreement, that you have the right to interpret, modify, or discontinue these terms at any time. And so you can rewrite commission structures, but again, it has to be in writing. Okay, so part of step 4.2 is creating forms, and setting up procedures is also putting ads. You know, I see clients put ads on Craigslist, Career Builder, Monster, you know, some social media, and LinkedIn, and that's great. But sometimes those can result in large volumes of unqualified candidates. So you really want to construct your ads to attract the people you want in your position. Make it clear that your success depends on performance, and use words like competitive, demanding, committed, self-starter, a career person, and aggressive. I mean, make sure that they understand it's dependent on performance. Provide a clear picture of the opportunity by using statements such as leads will be furnished, if they are furnished. You're an established, stable company. You're willing to train. You give great commission with base pay, or your salary to start and then generous commission plan. You know, use some attracting words that are going to get people that are interested in making, you know, money, because good salespeople are interested in making good money. And what is it, what's in it for them? What's in it for them. So, you know, here's a couple sample ads I've used, and you can change these, you can use them, you can do whatever you want, but these are for insurance. Sometimes I do it this way. You know, are you a corporate employee dissatisfied with your current opportunities? Are you unafraid of hard work, want to be rewarded for your own performance? Most salespeople go, yes, yes, yes. Okay, then we have a career opportunity for a competitive self-starter who seeks a challenge and has a commitment and a need to win. And this one says we will train the right individual. So these are just examples of here's what you can do. Change your ad. It doesn't have to be a 4-page job description. It really needs to be a quick ad, and it needs to be enticing and something that people want to read and see and respond to. Again, another way is just, you know, ABC Insurance Agency seeks a top salesperson who's dissatisfied with the opportunities available with their current employer. So if you have a winning track record, intensive, competitive, and are driven by an internal need for greater responsibility and income, you may be the person we are seeking. So these are just ideas for changing your ads. I'm amazed at how many ads out there are just big, long job descriptions, and they are the most boring pieces of information that doesn't tell me anything about what you're really seeking. So if you are really looking for a salesperson, try to really tailor your ad to being very specific in what you're looking for, and don't give a job description. You need a job description internally, but you don't need to post a job description on a job ad for salespeople. You need to do something different, and you need to stick out from the crowd. Okay. So we have another question, poll question. Diana?
Yes. Which of these sources has helped you find your best talent? Please select one. Internet job sites, print ads, social media such as Facebook, LinkedIn, Twitter, referrals, or recruiting agencies. So I can just get everyone to choose which sources have given you the best talent.
And were there any questions so far, anything at this point?
One question we have is, do you test for the personality traits, such as personality test, etc.?
We do, and we're going to talk about that in a little bit. So, yes,
Great.
Just a quick answer.
Perfect. I'm going to go ahead and close the poll. Thank you so much. And it looks like we have 6% for internet job sites, 6% print ads, 11% social media, 61% referrals, and 17% recruiting agencies.
Wow, so it sounds like the best talent has come from referrals and recruiting agencies, and those are great sources. I have to agree with that. I've had some great referrals as well, so thank you very much. All right, so my tactic for finding salespeople is to find good people in bad places. And what I mean by bad places is, maybe they're in an industry that doesn't pay as well commissions as we do, or maybe they're in, they just haven't found the right place because they're like a recent college graduate. They've had a couple years out of school trying to figure out who they are, and now they're ready for, a great sales opportunity. Or maybe they're with a company or an industry that's not doing so well in the economy, and you need to pluck them from that industry, and they're great salespeople. So, look for that. Or maybe an industry that's dying. I've seen clients hire from yellow page ad kind of people because that's really not, a growing industry in a sense. So look for people like that are in different industries, maybe if you're willing to do a trainee. Or, if you're looking at competitors, then look for someone who's working with a competitor that has a bad reputation in town. And maybe they're sticking it out, but if you offer them something better, they may jump ship. So something to look for. Good people in bad places. And then, the options for finding candidates kind of went through the LinkedIn, the job boards, company websites. Also look at industry publications. If I know one of the things that I like to do is to find candidates, salespeople in a niche for my client. So if my client is an insurance agency and they write nonprofits, I'm going to look at nonprofit salespeople, like business development and fundraising kind of people. I have one client that told me, there's a lot of wineries in their area, and so they're looking at finding wine cork sellers. And I was like, I didn't even know a cork seller existed. But those cork sellers, sell to all the wineries. And so why not bring them in to sell insurance to all those wineries? So just really think of other, industry publications and industry niches that might be of use to you. And then obviously referrals and enlisting the help of your staff is a really great thing. If you're not using it, you should be using it. Okay, so search process continued. We're thinking about things here within your company. There's pros and cons to hiring people within your company. There's pros and cons to hiring a salesperson within the industry that you're in, taking them from another industry. Some of those cons are, some of the people in your own office, they might be really great at service, but do they really have the sales skills? But it is a good thing to give your staff mobility. If there is somebody internally that could work, their way up or move up the ladder, that's a great incentive to do. If you're looking at people within your industry, they know the book, they know people, they already have contacts established, they can have some immediate production, but that pool may not exist, or it may be difficult to retrain them to your way of doing things, or they may not be motivated for new sales. They may be kind of riding on their coattails. So be careful about those kind of candidates. Some of my clients like to look at recent college grads, And in recent college grads, they look at athletes or business or finance majors or economics majors, or somebody with sales experience while in school. So if they work some summer jobs or some jobs part-time that were sales related, they'll look at that. So the recent college grads are ready to work. They're, usually have great computer skills. They're eager to succeed. They have lower salary requirements starting out, which could be a benefit, but they do need experience, and sometimes they have unrealistic expectations. They need a little more mentoring, and then can they actually sell? And here's where the personality profiles will definitely help you, is to see if they actually have the sales potential. You might want to look at people in your clients who, if you have a couple niches that are clients, specialty areas, maybe taking someone from that area so they know your client's business and they understand it. They usually have some good success in that area. So find someone in, like my client, who's looking at cork sellers who, are very good at what they do, and they already have relationships with some of the wineries in the area, and they could take it from there. Definitely look at recruiting agencies. Sometimes it does save you time and money and gives you more people to choose from, but those higher fees, and I will say, and I'm one of them, a recruiting agency, the higher fees will add to your overall expense budget. So make sure you have that in your budget when you're looking at hiring salespeople. And then you can look at classified ads and Craigslist and that sort of thing. You're going to get a large pool of candidates, but they may not be qualified. They may be just too many to go through. I've had a couple clients where they've put an ad out and, just a customer service manager role. They wanted specific insurance industry experience, but they didn't really specify that in their ad, and they got 150 resumes come through, and they don't have the time to go through that. So be careful when you place just a regular classified ad that you are putting out the right ad. Okay, and then look at experienced salespeople, maybe in other industries. Some of these industries may be what you're in right now, but these are some of the industries that I look at when I recruit for the insurance industry. I look at mortgage brokers. I look at enterprise rent-a-car people. I look at banks and business development officers. I look at waiters, restaurant equipment supply people, retail sales, phone sales, office equipment and copiers, and that sort of thing. So these might be great. Think of some areas that might be really great for you, and they could be experience in your niche would be great, and they have sales skills and connections, and so they may be really great candidates to recruit. However, on the con side, some of them have higher salary requirements. They also need your industry training, and they need mentoring, so make sure that you have time for that. So just some ideas of searching and where you can search for people. Okay, and we're up to step 6. So step 6 is to start advertising. Start whatever advertising you're going to do, a LinkedIn ad, a career builder, a monster, whatever you're going to start to do. And you're going to review your stacks of resumes and sort into categories, and you're going to call 5 to 15 potential candidates to consider. And you're also going to look at your referrals that have come in after you tell your staff, here's what we're looking for, and if you know of anybody, send them our way. And also, if you have a few, if you decide to go outside of your industry and go, hey, I want to find a salesperson in these 4 industries, and you let your staff know it, they may actually have friends and family members that work in those industries, and they may be a great resource to think about. And then you're going to sort your candidates into A, Bs, and Cs. This is what I do. It's either A, has experience, meet basic profile requirements, and screen them now. B, they might be candidates, maybe they're missing something, or maybe you can't tell really from the resume. So you might want to hold off and send a thank you letter, or keep in touch, and or call them after you screen your A candidates. And then your C candidates, if someone applied to you, I always think it's best to at least send a thank you letter that they're not qualified and why. And I will tell you that when we do this in my office to candidates, we are amazed at how many people say, oh my gosh, thank you so much. Like, nobody ever responds to me. And in this day and age of electronics and online applications and all of that, it's really important to have a personal touch if you can. It goes a long ways, and you never know where that candidate might be in 4 or 5 years. If you've treated them with respect and given them the information, you never know, they might be a worthwhile candidate for you in the future. So we try to, be upfront with people, send them thank you letters that they're not qualified, but appreciate you thinking of us. And it could be beneficial in the long run. Okay, and so step 7, you're going to have a phone interview and in-person interviews. And I always suggest that you start with a phone interview, and this could even be if you were looking at salespeople, and if you are in HR, I know HR people do a phone screen a lot, and that's great, wonderful. But if you're looking for salespeople and you're looking at people outside of your industry that don't know who you are or what you do, your first phone screening might not be the best to be handled by the human resource person. If you have a full-time recruiter, that's fine if they really know about the job. But I really suggest sometimes having a sales manager or the hiring manager make this first interview, especially on your A candidates. And the reason is that it's kind of a different type of phone interview. I want you to look at it differently. This candidate, if you're looking at a salesperson in a different industry, they're probably considering a number of different options if they are looking for a job. If they were referred to you, they may not even be quite, thinking they are going to look for a job, or if you found them somewhere like LinkedIn or something and you found them or your recruiter found them, they may not be open to new options at this point. They know little about what you do, and even if they are searching for a new job, they won't make a commitment until they have done their homework. So I had a recent sales candidate that I found, and he was in a different industry, and I'm recruiting him for the insurance industry. And it took 3 months for me to convince him, well, probably 2 months before I convinced him that he needed to at least meet with us or meet with my client in person. And part of that was he asked a lot of great questions about the industry and why and what kind of commissions and how does that work. And, they ask a lot. They're not going to sell themselves during this phone conversation. You're going to sell your company and what makes you different to them, and then allow them to do some homework. Allow them to take, here's our website, here's what we do for a living, give them some time to think about it after this phone interview. Now, even if they've called you or they've responded to your ad, this still may be a different kind of phone interview. And so treat it a little bit differently. And so I think it's important that you allow them some time to think about changing careers and looking at a new sales opportunity. So this may be a totally different way of doing things for you, but I think it's really important to have this piece be with someone who is the sales manager, the hiring manager, maybe the owner or an executive within the company, do this call rather than just HR or the recruiter. So then at that point, if they're still interested, have a further conversation with them. But if you set up a phone interview with a candidate, make sure that you're on time for that phone interview. Ask what they know about your industry or perceptions about your industry. Ask them, how did you hear about the position? Why are you interested in this opportunity? Why are you looking, especially if they came to you? And then provide them information on the benefits of a career as a salesperson with your firm. What does it look like in 5 years, 10 years? What are your current salespeople kind of making, and how long did it take for them to get there? Answer their questions about the job, the industry, and listen for them asking great questions to make an educated decision. They should be asking you things like territory, how much windshield time, what kind of clients are they? How big are these accounts? How often do they buy? They need to ask questions too in this conversation. This is an initial screening, so your decision at this point is whether you can see sufficient potential for fit to continue this process with this candidate. And you may even want to leave it up to them to follow up with you if they are further interested. I do this a lot with candidates for sales positions. I really want to know what kind of salesperson they are. And I leave it to them to think about it, to ask me any questions, and then to follow up with me if they're further interested in working in this industry. And some don't ever call me again, and that's fine. We've moved on, and some do. I also look at, I think it's funny to get salespeople that will call and want a job in my office internally as a recruiter, and they won't even know who the boss is. And at that point, I don't even talk to them if they come to me because they haven't even done their homework. They haven't even looked me up online to realize that's what I am and who I am and what I do for a living and who the owner of the company is. And it's very easy to find me because it's all over our website, LinkedIn, everything. If you want to know who the owner of SDI Staffing is, it's very easy to find that information. And it amazes me at how many salespeople don't even know that information. So if someone is coming and applying to you and doesn't know your role or who you are or something about your company, I'd be concerned about them as a salesperson, because they should have done their homework before they ever called you for a job. But if you're calling them and reaching out to them, it's a different story, because, you know, they're like not expecting your call or something like that. So, but do leave it to them after you have this conversation about the potential, about the job, about the opportunity. Let them follow up with you, because that's part of, you know, if they are interested in the opportunity in a salesperson and a sales role, they should be the one to make the next step. Something to think about. You want to narrow down your list after you do phone interviews and conduct in-person interviews. Again, have a set questions to determine their background, qualifications, their skills. Do they possess the personality traits you're looking for? And review their past history and see if logical reasons for leaving past jobs. You're going to ask that question too at some point, probably in person, for logical reasons for leaving their past jobs. You're going to also start from the beginning of the candidate's work history and work your way through each subsequent job. And you're not going to ask for detail right away. You're just going to ask the same 4 questions. How did you find out about the job? What did you like about the job before you started? Why did you leave? Or what was unfair at this position? Those are great 4 questions to ask about each of their last positions. And you're looking for patterns of, you know, oh, it didn't work out, it didn't work out, it didn't work out. Why? And you know, you can see patterns sometimes of, oh, you know, I just didn't like it there. I just didn't like it there. I just didn't like it there. I'm like, okay, well, something's wrong with you then if you didn't like every place you've ever worked at. So it does give you some ideas of patterns. And if they tell you things that were unfair at the position and you're starting to hear the same kind of things, it's a concern and a red flag. Then you're going to ask the candidate about success at their past jobs. What have been your 3 best or biggest business successes? Describe your 3 worst. How would you change the circumstances should your worst experiences occur again? Who was your best boss or supervisor and why? And what were their characteristics and business practices that you liked? And then I have some additional questions that I will share with everybody. They're called behavior-based interviews, and they go kind of by skill set. Like, you know, if you need someone that has be able to resolve conflicts, or you want to see if they have ambition, some of the questions will give you that information. So I will share some sample questions with everybody at the end. Probably Diana have it sent out or posted or something.
Yeah, we'll do that, definitely.
Okay, so now we're going to get to the polling question, which someone had asked about personality profiles. And so I want to know how many of you actually use a personality profile for sales candidates? Yes or no?
So if everyone could just choose yes or no, I'll give everyone a few more seconds to get their answers in. Appreciate you participating in the polls. It gives us great feedback. Thank you so much. And it looks like we were neck and neck for a minute, but now it looks like no is pulling ahead. I'm going to go ahead and close out the poll. And it does look like 56% said no and 44% said yes.
Well, that's awesome, because if you are hiring salespeople, you need to have a personality profile for your sales candidates. And you need to find one that you like, that you can afford, that you can deal with. You don't have to do it on every single person. Well, let me take that back. Legally, yes, if you're for the same job. But you can give it to them at a certain point in this process. It doesn't have to be early on. It can be later on in the process, like you've narrowed it down to 2 or 3 really great people, and this is the next step. You can do something like that. But you do need to use it. And I have, you know, so part of this phone interview, in-person interview and testing is you're going to evaluate your interviews. You're going to set up for any skills or knowledge testing and this personality profile aptitude testing. These are some profiles that we use or have seen used in the insurance and financial services industries. And so if some of you have different ones, that's great. But these are just some. If you don't use any of them, an Omnia, a Caliper, a Wonderlic, a DISC profile, and Myers-Briggs. You can find them online. I will tell you that we use internally here a Wonderlic test, and they have they have 3 different tests at the Wonderlic. And the first one I always start sales candidates with is their new motivational assessment. It's called an MPA, and it's just a quick 30 question. It's very affordable. You know, it's less than $10 a person, and it will tell you how motivated they are in the areas that you need in sales. And it's a quick 30 question test. We just started using this with sales candidates, and it's been pretty interesting. We've done it on me internally, and the staff kind of laughed because some of the questions that it asked, it obviously determined that I wasn't in it for the long haul, which is pretty funny in my office. But it's a really great little test. At least it's something that you're doing is a motivational test. And then once we get it narrowed down to so we give everybody that motivational test. And once we get narrowed down to, our top 2 or 3 candidates, we give them the full personality profile. So it's really, really important if you are hiring salespeople, especially if they're new or they're new to your industry, and they don't have, a huge background in it, maybe they're a college graduate, it's really, really helpful for you. Some of the profiles and stuff will actually give you hints on, how to manage this person, how to motivate this person. So it's a really good resource, and you should add it to your tools that you're using for recruiting. Okay, so then step 8 is conducting additional interviews and a job shadow. So I recommend that you do second interviews, and a job shadow could be a second interview or it could be a third interview. But I do also recommend a job shadow. If you are hiring someone new to the industry that you're in, and maybe they're a salesperson in another industry, but they have never done what you do, I think it's really important that they interview with your team and other salespeople on your team, and also that they job shadow people on your team. And it could be they job shadow the sales manager. You, as the owner or sales manager, can also have them job shadow you if you want. But they definitely need to see what it's like to work in your office and what it's like in the day-to-day job of a salesperson in your office. And so, that could go with going on a prospective client visit and then asking them what they thought after the meeting. This is not training. You're not training this candidate. They're just observing what you do every day and how you do it. I also suggest if you get to a third interview stage that maybe you meet others in the agency or the company, or a social setting away from the office, maybe a golf tournament, maybe a dinner, something like that. And I think that's really effective, just to have a meeting at different times of the day, a daytime interview, a morning interview, an evening event, something all different, because people act differently in different settings, and you want to make sure this is somebody you could work with on a day-to-day basis. So, and last point is, while this investment at this point is considerable, remember it's important to select the right person that you go through this process, and that you have a process set up. And this is the process we're going to take, and everybody goes through the same process. So if you don't have that set up in your office, it's really important to get that set up as part of your strategy and your searching. Okay, so as you're conducting additional interviews and your job shadowing, I want you to think of some red flags. Long shots rarely come in, but there are exceptions. So these are not, 100% foolproof, but things to think about. So if they're not a long-time resident of your marketing territory, you might be concerned, because then they don't really know the area or the people or the companies, so that could be a concern. If the personality profile doesn't match what you are looking for, I know that personality profiles are not 100%, but I've seen pretty good results with an accuracy in them. So find one that has good results in accuracy. If they don't have any interests outside of work or school, if your candidate is just going to school and doesn't have a job outside of school and doesn't have activities or doesn't play sports or doesn't, be concerned. Like, what else do you do? One of my clients asked candidates, what are you reading right now? What kind of things do you like to read? He wants to know what kind of, what their interests are and where they're, outside of work. If they had no jobs while in college, and I'm not talking about during the school year, I'm talking about summers too. And just so you know, I have 2 kids in college right now, and I can't even imagine them not working during the summer and not having something to do. And both my kids have worked every summer during, between school. but they have some friends who have done nothing. And I'm like, what do they do? That's not a motivated person that I'm interested in. You know, unless they're going to college, you know, summer school or something full time, you know, what if they have no jobs while in college, it's a concern for me. Now, on the second phase of that is if you're considering someone who is an athlete, a full-time athlete in college, that's a different story because it's probably very hard for them. Obviously can't work during the school year and probably can't work most of the summer because of whatever sport they're playing. But just something to think about. If this candidate is unsuccessful with one of your competitors, be concerned. It could be a maybe. And I always tell my clients it really depends on the competitor, because if this person had no prior sales experience, they were thrown into this sales job with a competitor of yours with no support, no mentoring, no training, no nothing, of course they're not going to be successful. So really find out why they're not successful to get a better idea for this. If they have any inadequate explained or unexplained lapse in employment, you know, they have a 6-month gap but really have no good explanation for that, or a year gap. You know, 3 to 6 months, if they're a salesperson, you know, it's kind of hard because people hire salespeople all the time. And right now, I don't care what industry you're in, everybody's looking for a salesperson. So I would be concerned if they're a salesperson and they have huge gaps of unemployment. If they're unable or unwilling to compile a list of 100 possible sources to get clients or referrals, I would be concerned. And I think that's a great question that you could ask during an interview at the final stages. Okay, now I want you to come back. We're going to meet with you again. We're going to take you to dinner, and I want you to come with you, 100 possible sources for referrals. How would you go and find a client that, would buy our product? It's a great thing to ask them to do to bring back to the next interview. If they have no history of success, if they've never been successful in a sales job, I would be concerned, and maybe they're really not cut out for sales. If they have a long work history of low or mediocre paying jobs, I would be concerned. Just that they haven't been motivated, or they haven't really figured it themselves out, or, if they have a long work history. I'm not talking about, they just got out of college 6 months ago and they've been working at, minimum wage. That's not what I'm talking about. I'm talking about long history of low or mediocre paying jobs. I would be concerned. Okay. Step 9 is when you get to the offer stage. So you better have your offer letter, your contract or commission agreement ready. You better have an established sales and validation game plan. They need to be validated by this marker, this marker, this marker. You need to have that all up front to them. They need to understand what their expectations are. You need to set up your onboarding and training if you're going to do any training. And then, once they start, you need to manage sales activity to ensure their success. So make sure you're ready to manage those sales activities. Okay, so sales trainees, if they are a trainee and you're training them in your business, they aren't born with 200 ready-made accounts. They're going to need constant reinforcement to offset rejection. They need direction and may be too embarrassed to ask questions. They do need a patient sales manager or a mentor to help them. Feedback is a #1 motivator for new salespeople. Structure is also important due to poor time utilization and lack of planned effort, especially if this is a new industry for them. If you can give them any kind of structure, support, tools to keep them on track, it'd be great. And if you have a sales support staff, it's really critical for them too, some kind of administrative staff. Some salespeople some sales positions require candidates to be out of the office to get face-to-face, so allow them to do that. Networking is critical. They need time to develop accounts, and don't change the comp plan while they're still learning the business. I've seen companies do this, or that start out, they're starting more successful than I think they are. You can't change the comp plan on them. You have to make sure it's affordable for you up front. Otherwise, don't do it. And straight commission is not a good idea for a new salesperson. If a candidate is not worth an investment or the company is unable to prove it, don't hire the salesperson. Really, I've seen a lot of candidates come to us, they take a straight sales commission job and they come back to us within 60 days going, okay, I need another job. You can't, most industries, it takes longer than 60 days. Your industry, if you're in something that you can get up and running in 60 days, more power to you. But not every salesperson can, or industry does that. And so that's why you've got to give them some kind of base pay to keep them motivated and keep them working. And if you can't afford it and it's not worth your time or investment, then don't hire someone. Don't hire someone. Okay, so devote your quality time in the selection process will greatly enhance the chance of success for both you and the salesperson. Be prepared, know what you can afford to pay, and get them the proper training and a mentor to be successful. And that's it for today. So are there any other questions or?
Yes, we do have a question. How important and what are the legal guidelines for background investigations?
Okay, well, I think background investigations are important, and really what's allowed, I guess, will depend on your state. We do only staffing in California, and so in California, you do have to get a signed agreement saying that you can check their backgrounds. You can do a criminal check for 7 years. You can do so you can do like county criminals, nationwide criminal. You can do a sex offender search, but you can Google the person all you want. I don't think there's any laws that says you can't. You can't ask for their password on Facebook, but you can go on Facebook and see if you can find it. And I do suggest that you do a little bit of that before you hire a salesperson. Just put their name in Google and see what comes up. If I'm hiring a salesperson that has prior sales experience, their name better come up on a Google search. They better have a LinkedIn profile. They better have some contacts in that LinkedIn profile. I'm hoping that they have social media accounts because that's what a salesperson has to have today. So I think it's really important. Some people look at people's clout score, K-L-O-U-T score. That just is how many people you're connected with kind of thing and how much you're out there on the Internet. So I suggest you do a Google search on people, but don't ask for their passwords to any social media sites. But I would want to see somebody have a LinkedIn profile if they're a salesperson. Now, if they're a recent college graduate with no prior sales experience, not having a LinkedIn profile is probably okay. But if you've been in any kind of sales, you should have a LinkedIn profile. You should be out on the Internet. I should be able to find you somewhere on your company website that you're working now, somewhere. Any other questions?
Yes. We have someone that would like to know, what about checking the driving records?
If the position requires driving, then yes, you can request a motor vehicle report. You can ask a couple things. You can ask them to bring it themselves to you because they can access that if they need to, or you can get that information. But really, before you can check a background and the driving record and all of that is after an offer of employment. So you can't get that ahead of time. What I normally ask candidates when I'm talking to salespeople is I ask them, I can ask about felony convictions if that's important, but also in the state of California you have to be careful that you better have a background policy for your company. So you better have, hey, this is an acceptable background for our company based on what we do for a living. So in the insurance industry and the banking and financial services, our background policy is, well, on the insurance side, we kind of mirror it to the Department of Insurance. So if you are not qualified to get an insurance license based on their qualifications, then you're not qualified to work in the insurance industry, then I'm not going to hire you. So that is really what we use for even our candidates. And so what I ask is, are you able to be licensed? And here's the requirements for licensing, and are you able to be bonded? And if you are, then that's great, we'll go forward. So you need to come up with some kind of policy. And you can ask about felony convictions if it's really important, but you can't really run a background check and a DMV record until after you've made an offer to the employee.
Okay, great. Thank you. And we have one last question, and it's regarding the suggestion to have a potential salesperson shadow. Mm-hmm. And the person would like to know, are there any legal requirements since they're not an employee? Do they need them to sign off on something indicating that they're not responsible?
No, you can just, say, hey, this is what we'd like to do. Do you have, give them a time frame, a couple hours, an hour, whatever. You don't have to do anything. It's of their own. It's part of the interview process. I get candidates that go, yeah, sure, I'll take 2 hours and, go job shadow. That's not a problem. You don't have to pay them. They're not doing any work. They're just kind of observing. And really, you're not sitting there training them. They're just observing and walking, and they're just, having a conversation or watching or observing. So, no, you don't. It's part of an interview. Just be just exactly like they're coming to interview in the office.
Okay, great. Well, thank you so much, It was a wonderful presentation. We thank you for your time, and we thank everyone for joining us today, and we look forward to seeing you at our next webinar. Thank you very much, and have a great day.